The emergency meeting of Earth's government had been going on for 6 hours. President Helen Martinez stood at the front of the room looking tired but determined. She was a woman in her 50s with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Around her, representatives from every nation on Earth argued and shouted at each other. The question before them was simple, but terrifying. Should humanity take charge of rebuilding the Galactic Council? Should Earth, the newest and youngest member of galactic civilization, try to lead species that were thousands of years older? "This is crazy," shouted Minister Chen Wei from the Asian Coalition. He was a heavy man with glasses who always worried about everything. "We have only been traveling to the stars for 1 generation. Now you want us to lead an entire galaxy?" "I do not want anything," President Martinez said firmly. "I am just telling you what the situation is. Captain Morrison's report is very clear. The galaxy is falling apart. If we do not act, millions of beings will die." "Then let the older alien races handle it," said Ambassador Pierre Dubois from Europe. He was a thin man with a pointed beard who liked to argue. "The Cathara and the Relics have thousands of years of experience. Let them fix their own problems." General Marcus Webb stood up. He was Earth's top military commander, a big man with a scarred face and a voice like thunder. "The Cathara are extinct. All of them are dead. The Vrelites are fighting a civil war and killing each other. The other old races have either hidden themselves away or are dealing with their own disasters. Whether we like it or not, we are the most stable major power left in the galaxy." Dr. Karen Foster, Earth's chief science advisor, brought up a holographic map of the galaxy. It showed thousands of star systems, many of them marked in red. "Look at the data. In the 3 months since the cascade, we have lost contact with 42% of known systems. Trade has fallen by 70%. We are seeing the largest refugee crisis in recorded history. If this continues, we are looking at a dark age that could last centuries. Or we could focus on protecting Earth," argued Minister Chen. "We make our own borders stronger. We make sure our own people are safe. Why should humanity spend its resources saving aliens who never even liked us in the first place?" "Because it is the right thing to do," said a quiet voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned around. Admiral Raymond Cole walked forward slowly. He was old, over 70, with gray hair and a face lined with wrinkles from years of service. He had been one of the first humans to meet the aliens when first contact happened decades ago. "I was there when we first met the Galactic Council," Cole said in his quiet, strong voice. "I saw how the older races looked at us, like we were children playing dress-up, like we did not matter. And you know what? They were right. We were children compared to them. They had thousands of years of history and culture and wisdom that we could not match." He paused and looked around the room. "But we had something they did not have, something they had forgotten after all those centuries of peace. We knew how to get back up after being knocked down. We knew how to adapt and change and survive against impossible odds. That is the human story, is it not? We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest. But we are the ones who do not give up." The room was completely silent now. Everyone was listening. "So the question is not whether we are qualified to lead," Cole continued. "The question is whether we are willing to help. And if the answer is no, if we turn our backs on the galaxy in its darkest hour, then we do not deserve to be out here among the stars at all." President Martinez met Cole's eyes and nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. Council members, I am calling for a vote. All in favor of accepting the Quellen proposal and beginning reconstruction of the Galactic Council, raise your hand." The vote was close. 58% voted yes, 42% voted no. It was enough to pass, but barely. Humanity would try to rebuild the Galactic Council. 3 weeks later, Captain Jake Morrison piloted the Horizon's Edge toward a massive new space station called Sanctuary. It had been built quickly by human engineers with help from alien workers. The station was designed to be a temporary headquarters for the new Galactic Council until something more permanent could be built. Dozens of ships from different species were already there. They had come from all over the galaxy, drawn by the promise of order and safety and hope. "It is really happening," Amy said, standing beside Jake and watching the station grow larger on the screen. "We are actually doing this." "We do not have a choice," Jake replied. "Someone has to try to fix things." The station's main meeting hall was enormous. It had been designed to hold representatives from hundreds of different species. There were sections with different gravity levels, different air mixtures, different temperatures. Some species needed to be underwater, some needed extreme cold, some needed darkness while others needed bright light. Jake found himself standing in the center of the hall, looking out at all the assembled aliens. Some he recognized from his years of service. The Quellan traders with their blue scales, the Zrel, who looked like giant insects with compound eyes, the Tharn, who were made of living crystal and spoke by flashing different colored lights. Many others were completely new to him. Species from the far edges of the galaxy who had traveled for weeks to get here, species he had never even heard of before. President Martinez stood beside Jake. When she spoke, computers translated her words into 200 different languages at the same time. 3 months ago, the cascade nearly destroyed us all, she began. It took our leaders, our homes, our sense of security. It would be easy to give up. It would be easy to hide and let fear control us. But that is not what the Galactic Council stood for. The Council, at its best, represented hope. It represented the idea that different species and different cultures could work together for the common good. She paused and looked around the enormous chamber. Earth accepts the responsibility of helping to rebuild, but we cannot and will not do it alone. This must be a true coalition, with every species contributing what they can. We offer our military to help restore order. We offer our engineers to help repair damaged infrastructure. We offer our diplomats to help solve disputes. In return, we ask only that you work with us, trust us, and help us learn from your wisdom and experience. Together, we will rebuild what was lost. Together, we will restore peace and order. Together, we will prove that the cascade did not break us. It made us stronger. The response was powerful. Not everyone looked happy, and Jake could see doubt and suspicion on many alien faces. But most of them seemed willing to try. Most of them wanted to believe that things could get better. As the meeting continued late into the night, they began to organize. Committees were formed. Responsibilities were assigned. Species with engineering expertise would help repair damaged space stations and jump gates. Species with medical knowledge would help treat the wounded and sick. Species with military strength would help patrol space and keep raiders away. Earth would coordinate the military efforts. The Quellan would handle trade and commerce. The Tharn would manage communications networks. The Zrel would oversee medical services. It was messy and complicated, but it was a start. Jake felt a strange mixture of pride and fear. Humanity had just taken its first real steps toward becoming a major galactic power. They were no longer the newest members being barely tolerated by older species. They were now leaders, and everyone was looking to them for guidance. He just hoped humans were ready for what came next. Late that night, after most of the representatives had gone to sleep, Jake found Admiral Cole standing alone in an observation deck. Looking out at the stars, "Cannot sleep either?" Cole asked without turning around. "Too much on my mind," Jake admitted, moving to stand beside the old admiral. "Did we just make a huge mistake? Are we really ready for this?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. "When I was your age, I asked myself similar questions. I was on the first ship to make contact with an alien species. I remember standing on the bridge looking at their ship on our screens, thinking we were about to change human history forever. I was terrified that I would mess it up. What did you do?" "I did my best. I treated them with respect. I listened more than I talked. I admitted when I did not know something, and somehow it worked out." Cole turned to look at Jake. "You are doing the same thing now, just on a bigger scale. No one expects you to be perfect. They just expect you to try." "Some of them expect us to fail," Jake said. "I saw it in their faces today. Some of those alien representatives think we are going to crash and burn." "Let them think that," Cole said with a slight smile. "Then prove them wrong. That is what humans do best. We exceed expectations," Jake nodded slowly. "I hope you are right." "So do I, son. So do I." Over the next few days, the real work began. Human ships started patrolling trade routes, protecting merchant vessels from raiders. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to repair damaged jump gates that allowed faster-than-light travel between star systems. Human diplomats mediated disputes between species that had not spoken to each other in months. It was exhausting work. There were never enough ships, never enough people, never enough resources. Every day brought new crises and new problems to solve. But slowly, gradually, things began to improve. 1 year had passed since the cascade, and Jake Morrison barely recognized the galaxy anymore. So much had changed in 12 months. Systems that had been dark and silent were now reconnected. Trade routes that had been empty now bustled with ships from dozens of species. The refugee crisis that had threatened to overwhelm everyone was slowly being resolved as people returned to rebuilt homes. But the biggest change was political. The new Galactic Council was real now, not just an idea or a hope. 83 species had formally joined, pledging to work together for mutual protection and prosperity. It was not as many as the old council's 47 core members plus hundreds of associate members, but it was far more than Jake had dared to dream about a year ago. Today was important. Today was the official inauguration of the council's permanent government structure. After a year of operating under emergency rules with human leadership, the council would now elect its first official chancellor and establish all the formal institutions of galactic government. Jake stood in the gallery of the Grand Assembly Hall, a magnificent new building on Sanctuary Station. The hall had been designed by architects from 40 different species, and it showed. The walls were a blend of human geometric precision, flowing Tharn crystal formations, and organic Zrel bioarchitecture. It was beautiful in a chaotic, multicultural way. Below him, representatives from 83 species filled the chamber. Some sat in chairs. Some floated in water-filled tanks. Some hung from the ceiling. The diversity was staggering. President Martinez stood at the center podium. She looked different than she had a year ago. Older, more worn down by the weight of responsibility, but also stronger somehow, like metal that had been hammered and tempered into something more durable. She was not running for chancellor. She had made that clear from the beginning. Her job had been to guide humanity through the crisis and get the council back on its feet. Now it was time for someone else to lead. 1 year ago, we stood on the edge of darkness, Martinez began. Her voice translated into 200 languages. The cascade had destroyed our institutions, shattered our sense of security, and left us scattered and afraid. Many predicted we would fall into a dark age that would last for centuries. She paused and looked around the chamber. They were wrong. A holographic display showed a map of the galaxy. A year ago, most of it had been red, indicating lost contact, active conflict, or complete chaos. Now most of the map showed blue and green. Systems reconnected, peace restored, order maintained. We have accomplished in 1 year what many said would take a decade, Martinez continued, not because humans are superior, not because we knew better than those who came before, but because we worked together, because we set aside pride and old grudges and focused on what mattered most, helping each other survive and rebuild. This is not the end of our challenges. There are still systems in chaos, still species who refuse to join us, still threats we must face together. But today we prove that the cascade did not defeat us. We are stronger than we were. We are united where we were divided. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds. Cheers from humans, chirps from Zrel, harmonic tones from Tharn, musical whistles from Quellen. It was a universal expression of hope and pride, translated across 100 different languages and cultures. The election of the chancellor took most of the day. There were 5 candidates from 5 different species. Each gave speeches about their vision for the council's future. In the end, President Martinez was elected as the council's first chancellor. Despite her announcement that she would not seek the position, the member species had voted for her anyway. 78% supported her candidacy. Standing beside her as vice-chancellors were Ambassador Velketh of the Quellen and, surprisingly, War Captain Threlax of the Vrelax. Threlax had changed dramatically over the past year. After working closely with human military forces to hunt down raiders and restore order, he had become one of the strongest advocates for the new council system. "I was wrong about humans," Threlax said in his acceptance speech, his reptilian voice rough but sincere. "I thought they were weak children playing at power. I was wrong. They are strong in ways that matter. They do not give up. They do not abandon their allies. They do not run away when things get hard. These are the qualities that galactic civilization needs right now." Jake felt a lump in his throat listening to the speech. A year ago, Threlax had been ready to fire on human ships. Now he was standing beside the human chancellor as a partner and friend. If that could change, anything could change. That evening, there was a reception for senior officers and diplomats. Jake found himself in a corner, nursing a drink and watching the crowd. He had never been comfortable at formal events. Speaker Ventar approached him. The Tharn had been one of the most vocal opponents of human leadership. His crystal body, which had flashed angry red so many times during debates, now glowed a soft blue that Jake's translator said indicated contentment. "Captain Morrison, I owe your species an apology," Ventar said, his voice coming through the translator as a pleasant chime. "I doubted you. I thought you were too young, too inexperienced, too naive. I was wrong." "You were not entirely wrong," Jake said diplomatically. "We are young. We have made plenty of mistakes. We will probably make more. But you showed up when others did not. You took responsibility when others ran away. You asked for help instead of pretending to know everything. You listened to criticism instead of dismissing it." Ventar paused, his crystal surface shifting colors. "The Tharn have a saying. Wisdom is not knowing everything. Wisdom is knowing what you do not know. Your species embodied that. Perhaps that is the wisdom the galaxy needed. Thank you, Speaker Venator. That means a lot coming from you. The Tharn Collective is formally withdrawing all opposition to the new council structure. We will work with humanity and all member species to build something better than what we lost." After Ventar left, Amy found Jake and pulled him out onto an observation deck. The station's windows showed stars in every direction, and ships of every design moving between them. "Thinking deep thoughts?" she asked, handing him a fresh drink. "Just wondering what happens next," Jake admitted. "We have rebuilt the council and restored some order, but we are not the Cathara. We cannot rule the galaxy for 6,000 years. Eventually something else will change. Maybe that is a good thing," Amy suggested. "The old council lasted so long because it resisted change. It became stagnant and inflexible. Maybe a system that evolves, that allows new leaders and new ideas, will be healthier in the long run." "When did you become a philosopher?" Amy laughed. "About the same time you became a galactic hero." "I am not a hero. I just did what needed to be done." "That is exactly what makes you a hero, you idiot." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the endless flow of ships. Human vessels, Quellan traders, Srel colony ships, Vrelix warships flying in formation with former enemies. The galaxy was healing, slowly but surely. A chime from Jake's communicator interrupted the peaceful moment. He checked the message and his eyes widened. "What is it?" Amy asked. "The Endeavor just reported in. They found a group of Cathara survivors in a remote system. Not many, maybe a few hundred, but they are alive," Amy gasped. "The Cathara survived? But we thought they were all extinct." "Apparently not all of them. And get this, they want to join the council as advisory members. They want to help with the rebuilding. That is incredible. The oldest race in the galaxy, working with the youngest. If people see the Cathara supporting human leadership, it will make a huge difference." Jake nodded, already thinking about the implications. The Cathara had founded the original Galactic Council thousands of years ago. Their survival and support would lend tremendous legitimacy to the new council. Species that had been hesitant to join might reconsider. "Send a message to the Endeavor," Jake said. "Tell them to extend every courtesy to the Cathara survivors. Make sure they have everything they need. And arrange for a diplomatic meeting as soon as possible." Over the next few weeks, more good news arrived. A coalition of mid-sized species that had been neutral announced they would join the council. Several systems that had gone dark during the cascade were successfully reconnected. The raider problem, while not eliminated completely, had been reduced significantly. Most importantly, the council's legitimacy was growing. People were starting to see it not as a temporary emergency measure, but as a real government that would last. Member species were beginning to invest in long-term infrastructure and planning, instead of just day-to-day crisis management. Jake was promoted to Admiral and given command of the Council's Exploration and Reconnection Fleet. His job was to find lost systems, make contact with isolated colonies, and bring them back into the galactic community. It was perfect for him. He had never wanted to be a politician or administrator. He wanted to be out among the stars, meeting new people, solving problems, making a difference one system at a time. On his first mission as Admiral, Jake took the Horizon's Edge to a remote sector that had been completely cut off for over a year. They found 3 colonized planets that had been struggling alone, with no outside contact or support. The colonists were overjoyed to see the Council ships arrive. Commander Betty Johnson stood on the bridge of a Vrelix warship, surrounded by angry alien faces. This was not where she had expected to be when she woke up this morning. The Vreli were reptilian aliens covered in green and brown scales with sharp teeth and claws. Right now, they looked ready to use those claws on her. 6 months had passed since humanity began helping to rebuild the Galactic Council. Some things were going well. Trade routes were open again. Refugee camps were emptying. Communication networks were working. But other things were not going well at all. Many species resented human leadership. They saw Earth as upstarts and opportunists taking advantage of the chaos. The Vrelites were a particular problem. Their civil war had technically ended, but different factions still fought for power. Some of them attacked ships that humans were protecting, trying to prove they were strong and independent. "You have no authority here, human," hissed War Captain Threlax. He was the leader of this Vrelix ship, a large male with dark scales and scars covering his face. "This is a Vrelix matter. Stay out of it." "It stopped being a Vrelix matter when you started firing on civilian transports," Betty replied calmly. She was a woman in her early 30s with short blonde hair and steady nerves. She had faced down pirates, raiders, and worse. She was not going to be intimidated by an angry alien. Those ships were carrying refugees under council protection. "There is no council," Threlax roared. "Only you humans pretending to have power you have not earned." Betty had heard this argument many times in the past months. The reconstruction effort was succeeding in some ways, but failing in others. While hundreds of systems had pledged support to the new council, there was constant pushback from species who hated taking orders from humans. "Captain Threlax, I understand your frustration," Betty said, choosing her words carefully. "But we are not your enemies. We are trying to help restore order so that disasters like the Cascade do not happen again." "Help?" Threlax laughed bitterly. "You want control. Just like the Cathara did, always claiming to know what was best, always forcing their will on others. At least they had the decency to be ancient and wise. You humans are infants playing with weapons you barely understand." "Maybe we are," Betty admitted, which seemed to surprise him. "Maybe we are making mistakes. We probably will make more mistakes. But we are trying. And right now, we are the ones who showed up. Where is the Vrelix leadership? Where are the elder races who should be handling this?" Threlax had no answer to that. He just glared at her with his yellow reptilian eyes. The standoff ended when 3 more human ships arrived, enough firepower to make even a proud Vrelis warrior reconsider his options. Threlax withdrew his ship, but Betty knew it was only a temporary solution. The resentment was still there, bubbling under the surface. Back on Sanctuary Station, Betty reported to Admiral Cole, who now coordinated Earth's military operations across 3 sectors of space. "It is getting worse, is it not?" Cole asked after hearing her report. He sat behind his desk, looking older and more tired than usual. "Yes, sir. For every species that supports the reconstruction, there is another that sees us as invaders. Some are calling us the Second Empire, comparing us to ancient human conquerors from our own history." Cole sighed heavily. "I am not surprised. We are asking the galaxy to trust us based on 6 months of work, when other species have centuries of history with each other. That is a very hard thing to ask. So what do? We keep showing up. We keep helping. And we give them a real voice in the new council." That last point was the focus of the next major assembly. President Martinez had proposed a new structure for the council, one that learned from the failures of the old system. Instead of a rigid hierarchy based on age and technology level, the new council would be more democratic. Representation would be based on population and contribution to collective security. The proposal faced immediate and fierce opposition. "This is completely absurd," declared Speaker Ventar of the Tharn Collective. He was a being made of living crystal, and when he was angry his surface flashed bright red. "You want to give equal representation to species who have barely mastered basic space travel? To cultures that still practice primitive economics? What my colleague is trying to say," interrupted Ambassador Velketh more diplomatically, "is that experience should matter. Surely the elder races, those of us who have survived for thousands of years, should have a greater say in galactic affairs." President Martinez stood at the podium. Jake, watching from the gallery above, could see the determination in her eyes. "The old council gave greater weight to elder races," she said firmly. "And where did that lead us? To complacency, to a system so rigid it could not adapt when crisis struck. The Cathara were the oldest race in known space, and they are gone now. Age did not save them. Experience did not save them. She activated the display screens around the chamber, showing images of the reconstruction efforts. Human engineers working side by side with Quellan traders to restore a jump gate. A joint human-Zeril medical team treating refugees from a dozen different species. Ships from 20 different species patrolling together to keep raiders away from vulnerable systems. This is what saved us, Martinez continued. Cooperation, diversity, different species bringing different strengths to solve common problems. Yes, humanity is new to galactic politics, but that also means we are not bound by old traditions or ancient prejudices. We see possibilities where others see only obstacles. The new council will have a senior advisory board, made up of experienced diplomats and leaders from all member species. Their wisdom will guide us, but final decisions will be made democratically, with each species having a say proportional to their contribution and population. This is not human domination. This is true cooperation. The debate went on for 3 days. Representatives argued passionately on both sides. Some supported the democratic approach, saying it was time for new ideas. Others opposed it, saying it would lead to chaos and mob rule. In the end, the proposal passed by a narrow margin. 53% voted yes, 47% voted no. It was enough, but barely. Many elder races voted against it. Several refused to participate in the new council at all, choosing instead to retreat into isolation and handle their own affairs. We might have just made things worse, Amy said to Jake as they watched the final vote tallies come in. She had returned to Sanctuary Station for the assembly and stood beside Jake in the gallery. Maybe, Jake admitted, or maybe we just forced the galaxy to evolve and change. Either way, there is no going back now. The new democratic structure meant big changes. Every species that joined the council got to vote on major decisions. The old system, where a few ancient species made all the important choices, was gone. Now even young species and small civilizations had a voice. Some species loved this. The Quellan, who had always been treated as second-class members of the old council because they were merchants instead of warriors or scientists, were thrilled. Dozens of smaller species that had been ignored by the Cathara eagerly joined, but other species hated it. The Tharn felt insulted that their thousands of years of wisdom counted for no more than a species that had just discovered space travel last century. The Vrelics saw it as proof that humans were trying to replace the old order with human values and human rules. The tensions came to a head 2 weeks later. A Tharn diplomatic vessel was attacked by unknown raiders near the border of human-protected space. The ship was destroyed, and all 147 crew members were killed. Speaker Ventar accused humans of failing to provide adequate protection. Some of the more extreme Tharn politicians even suggested that humans had allowed the attack to happen on purpose, to weaken the Tharn's opposition to the new council structure. This is ridiculous, Jake said, reading the accusations in his office. We have ships patrolling that sector constantly. We cannot be everywhere at once. They know that, Amy replied. But they need someone to blame, and we are convenient targets. President Martinez called an emergency session of the council. Every member species sent representatives. The chamber was packed and the mood was hostile. We deeply regret the loss of the Tharn vessel, Martinez began. Our patrols are investigating the attack and we will find those responsible. Your patrols failed. Ventar shouted, his crystal body flashing angry red. 147 of my people are dead because you could not protect them. We are doing everything we can with the resources we have, Martinez replied. But the galaxy is enormous and our forces are stretched thin. We need more cooperation from all member species. More ships contributing to patrol duties. More intelligence sharing about raider movements. Or perhaps we need less human leadership, suggested another Tharn representative. Perhaps we should return to the old ways where experienced species made the important decisions. The chamber erupted in arguments. Species loyal to humanity defended the new system. Species opposed to human leadership called for radical changes. It was chaos. Jake watched from the gallery, feeling helpless. They were trying so hard to help, but it seemed like nothing they did was ever enough. Every success was overshadowed by a new crisis. Every problem they solved created 2 new problems. Admiral Cole appeared beside him. 5 years had passed since the Great Collapse, and the galaxy was almost unrecognizable from the broken, terrified place it had been. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, still called the Horizon's Edge, though it was a much larger and more advanced vessel than the science ship he had commanded during those first desperate days. His fleet consisted of ships from 12 different species, all working together under the Council's banner. Human frigates flew alongside Quellan merchant cruisers that had been converted to carry sensors and communication equipment. Vrelix warships patrolled in formation with Zrel hospital ships. Tharn crystal carriers provided long-range scanning while smaller vessels from a dozen minor species filled support roles. It was beautiful, in a way Jake had never imagined back when humanity first joined the old Galactic Council. Back then, different species barely spoke to each other except when required by diplomatic protocol. Now they worked together as naturally as breathing. "Admiral, we are approaching the Terrell system," reported Commander Amy Parker. She had been promoted multiple times over the past 5 years, and was now his second in command. Sensors show 3 inhabited planets and 1 large asteroid colony. No signs of Council presence. They have been isolated since the collapse. "Open a communication channel," Jake ordered. "Let them know we come in peace and want to help reconnect them with galactic civilization." This was Jake's job now, leading the Council's exploration and reconnection fleet, finding systems that had been cut off, making contact with isolated colonies and bringing them back into the fold. It was exactly what he loved to do. Every mission was different. Every system had its own unique challenges and stories. The Terrell system had been a minor trading hub before the collapse. 3 species lived there together, a rare example of successful multi-species colonization. But without the jump gate network connecting them to the rest of the galaxy, they had been completely alone for 5 years. The response to his hail came quickly. An elderly Quellan man appeared on the view screen. His blue scales faded with age, but his eyes bright with hope and disbelief. "Council vessels, you are truly from the Galactic Council? We thought it was destroyed forever." "It was destroyed," Jake said gently, "but we rebuilt it. My name is Admiral Jake Morrison of Earth. We are here to reconnect your system to the galactic community, if you will have us." The old Quellan started crying. "We have been alone for so long. We thought we were forgotten." "You were never forgotten," Jake assured him. "It just took us time to reach you. No one gets left behind. That is what the new council stands for." Over the next 3 days, Jake's fleet worked with the local population to begin reconnection. Engineers from multiple species repaired the damaged jump gate that would allow travel to and from the system. Medical teams treated people who had been sick for years without access to advanced medicine. Trade negotiators helped establish new economic relationships with the broader galactic economy. But most importantly, they gave the people of Terral hope. Hope that they were not alone. Hope that civilization still existed and still cared about them. Hope that the future would be better than the past 5 years of isolation. On the 3rd day, as the jump gate powered up for the first time since the collapse, the entire population of Terral watched. Millions of beings from 3 different species stood together, holding their breath. The jump gate activated with a brilliant flash of blue light. The connection was established. Terral was part of the galaxy again. The celebration was immediate and overwhelming. People cheered and cried and embraced each other. Strangers from different species hugged and danced together. It was one of the most beautiful things Jake had ever seen. "This never gets old," Amy said, standing beside him and watching the celebration through the view screen. "No, it does not," Jake agreed. "This is what we fought for. This is what it was all about." Back on Sanctuary Station, the heart of the new Galactic Council, Chancellor Helen Martinez reviewed reports from across the galaxy. The news was mostly good. The Council now included 203 member species. Trade had recovered to 90% of pre-collapse levels. The refugee crisis was essentially over, with most people either returned to their homes or successfully resettled in new colonies. The raider problem had been reduced from a galactic crisis to a manageable law enforcement issue. The Council Security Force, a joint military organization with ships and personnel from dozens of species, patrolled trade routes and protected vulnerable systems. Piracy still happened, but it was rare and usually dealt with quickly. Communication networks spanned the galaxy again, allowing instant contact between systems. Scientific research had resumed, with the Council Scientific Directorate coordinating projects involving researchers from hundreds of different species. Medical advances were being shared freely. Agricultural techniques were being spread to systems that struggled with food production. Most importantly, the political situation was stable. The democratic structure of the new council had proven surprisingly effective. Yes, there were still arguments and disagreements. Yes, some species were unhappy with certain decisions, but conflicts were resolved through debate and compromise instead of threats and violence. The old council had maintained peace through the overwhelming authority of ancient races like the Cathara. The new council maintained peace through genuine cooperation and mutual respect. It was messy and sometimes frustrating, but it worked. Martinez prepared for the council's annual assembly, where all member species would gather to discuss the state of galactic civilization and plan for the future. She had been chancellor for 5 years now, and she was tired. Leading the galaxy was exhausting work, but it was also deeply satisfying. Message arrived from Admiral Cole. The old man had retired from active military service, but still served as an advisor to the council on military and strategic matters. Chancellor, I wanted you to see this before the assembly. Cole's recorded message began. He looked even older than the last time she had seen him, his face lined with deep wrinkles, but his eyes were still sharp. We have found something remarkable. The video switched to show a star system Martinez did not recognize. This is the Kelvin system, deep in what we thought was uninhabited space. Our exploration fleet found it 3 weeks ago. Chancellor, there is an advanced civilization here. They never joined the old Galactic Council because they never knew it existed. They developed space travel independently and have been expanding into their local cluster for the past 2 centuries. Martinez felt her heart race. A new civilization, one that had never been part of the old order. This could change everything. They are peaceful and curious, Cole continued. They call themselves the Naveen. They are eager to meet other species and learn about galactic civilization. I have invited them to send a delegation to the assembly. I hope that was appropriate. Martinez smiled. It was absolutely appropriate. The new council was always looking for new members. New perspectives, new friends. At the assembly, representatives from 203 species filled the Grand Assembly Hall. The chamber had been expanded twice over the past 5 years to accommodate the growing membership. It was now large enough to hold thousands of delegates comfortably. Chancellor Martinez called the session to order and began her annual address. 5 years ago, the cascade nearly destroyed us, she began. We have all heard this story before, so I will not dwell on the past. Instead, I want to talk about the future we have built together. She activated the display screens, showing statistics and maps and images from across the galaxy. 5 years ago, galactic civilization was fractured and dying. Today it is thriving. Trade is strong. Communication is open. Scientific advancement continues. Peace is maintained not through force or authority, but through cooperation and mutual benefit. We have reconnected 417 systems that were lost during the collapse. We have resettled 12 million refugees. We have defeated or reformed most of the raider organizations that threatened shipping lanes. We have established new colonies on 600 worlds. We have accomplished all of this together, as partners and equals. She paused and looked around the chamber. But our work is not finished. There are still systems we have not reached, still people who need our help, still challenges we must face as a galactic community. Today, I want to introduce you to one of those challenges, but also one of our greatest opportunities. The Cathara ambassador Lencor stepped forward. The Cathara were no longer extinct. The few hundred survivors that had been found 5 years ago had grown into a thriving community of several thousand, living on Sanctuary Station and contributing their ancient knowledge to council projects. Honored delegates, Lencor said in the musical language of his people, translated into 200 tongues simultaneously. Today we welcome a new species to our council, the Naveen, who come from beyond what we thought were the boundaries of civilized space. They represent something important. They remind us that the galaxy is vast and full of people we have not yet met. They remind us that our work of building a peaceful, cooperative galactic civilization is never truly finished. The Naveen delegation entered the chamber. They were tall, slender beings with silvery skin and 4 arms. The stars looked wrong to Jake Morrison. He stood at the window of his ship, the horizon's edge, and stared at the empty space where the Galactic Council headquarters used to be. Now there was only broken metal and shattered glass floating in the darkness. 3 months had passed since the disaster they called the Cascade, and the galaxy still looked like a graveyard. Jake was a ship captain for Earth's space fleet. He was 35 years old with dark hair that was starting to show gray at the sides. His uniform was wrinkled because he had been awake for 20 hours straight, searching through the ruins for survivors. "Captain, we found more people alive," said Amy Parker, his second in command. She was a young woman with red hair tied back in a tight bun. Her voice was tired but steady. 17 more today. That makes 243 total. Jake felt his chest tighten. 243 survivors out of 12,000. The Galactic Council had been home to thousands of beings from dozens of different alien species. Now almost all of them were gone. The Galactic Council had existed for 6,000 years. It was like a government for the whole galaxy, where different alien species worked together to keep peace. There were 47 member species, and humanity had joined just 15 years ago. Earth was the newest member, and many of the older alien races had treated humans like children who did not know anything important. Now those older races were gone or scattered. The Cathara, who had started the Council thousands of years ago, were completely wiped out. Their home planet had been destroyed by the Cascade. The Vrelic were fighting each other in a civil war. The Sorn, who breathed methane instead of oxygen, had locked themselves away and would not talk to anyone. Humanity was one of the few civilizations that still had a working government. Earth's cities still stood. Earth's military ships still flew. Earth's people were scared and confused, but they were organized and ready to help. "Sir, we are getting a message," called Greg Turner from his station. He was the communications officer, a young man with glasses who always looked worried. "It is a distress call from far away." Jake walked quickly to the bridge. "Let me hear it." A face appeared on the screen. It was an alien with blue scales covering its skin and large black eyes. Jake recognized the species as Quellan. They were traders and merchants who traveled all over the galaxy buying and selling goods. "This is Ambassador Velketh of the Quellan Trade Consortium," the alien said in a tired voice. "We need help urgently. Raiders are attacking our stations. Our defense ships were destroyed in the Cascade. Please, if anyone can hear this, we are dying out here." The message started over from the beginning. It was a recording that had been playing on repeat probably for weeks. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. Amy checked her computer. 4 days of travel at our fastest speed. "But Captain, we are a science ship. We do not have big weapons. We cannot fight raiders." Jake looked at the message playing again on the screen. The alien ambassador looked desperate and frightened. Jake thought about all the times his teachers had told him stories about the Galactic Council. They said the Council stood for peace and helping others. They said the Council protected those who could not protect themselves. "We have to try," Jake said quietly. "The Council would have helped them. That is what the Council was supposed to be about." Amy looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "You are right. What are your orders?" "Set course for their location. Maximum speed, and send a message to any other human ships nearby. Tell them we need backup." The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, and the stars became long streaks of light outside the windows. Jake sat in his captain's chair and thought about what they were doing. This was not just a rescue mission. This was bigger than that. The galaxy was broken. There was no government anymore. No one to keep order. No one to stop the raiders and criminals from doing whatever they wanted. Systems that had been peaceful for centuries were now dangerous. Trade routes that had carried food and medicine were now empty or controlled by pirates. Someone needed to step up and help. Someone needed to try to fix things. Jake had never wanted to be a hero. He had joined Earth's space fleet because he loved exploring new places and meeting new people. He liked learning about alien cultures and seeing strange new worlds. He had never imagined that one day he would be making decisions that could affect the whole galaxy. But here he was, and running away was not an option he could live with. 2 days into their journey, they received responses from other human ships. The Endeavor and the Pathfinder were changing course to meet them. Both were military vessels with real weapons and trained fighters. Jake felt a little better knowing they would have help. On the 4th day, they arrived at the Orion sector. What Jake saw made his stomach turn. 3 large space stations hung in orbit around a green gas giant planet. The stations were damaged with holes in their sides and fires burning in some sections. Around the stations flew at least 20 raider ships of different sizes and designs. They looked like they had been built from pieces of other ships, all welded together in ugly combinations. "They are not organized," said Danny Hughes, the weapons officer. "Each ship is doing its own thing. No teamwork. That gives us an advantage," Amy said. "Human military training focuses on coordination. We work together better than they do." The Endeavour and Pathfinder dropped out of faster-than-light travel beside them. Jake felt relieved to see them. Captain Frank Carter's face appeared on the communication screen. He was an older man with a gray beard and scars on his face from old battles. "Morrison, looks like you found trouble," Frank said. "Good to see you, Frank. Ready to help some people?" "Always. What is the plan?" Jake looked at his tactical display. 3 human ships against 20 raiders. Not good odds, but they had better weapons and better training. More importantly, they had a good reason to fight. They were protecting innocent people. "We go in fast and loud," Jake said. "We disable their weapons but do not destroy them completely. Show them they picked the wrong target. Greg, send them a message. Tell them this station is under Earth's protection now. Tell them to leave or face the consequences." "Captain, they probably will not listen," Amy started to say, but she was interrupted by weapons fire from the raiders. "All ships, evasive action. Return fire," Jake ordered. The battle began. The horizon's edge rolled to the side as plasma bolts and metal slugs flew past them. Human railguns fired back, shooting pieces of metal at incredible speeds. The first raider ship exploded in a burst of flame and debris. The 3 human ships moved in perfect formation, like dancers who had practiced together for years. Within minutes, 6 raider ships were floating dead in space, their weapons destroyed and engines disabled. "The raiders are running away," Danny shouted. "Let them go," Jake said. "Let them tell other raiders that these stations are protected now." As the last raider ship jumped away to faster-than-light speed, a new message came through. Ambassador Velketh appeared on screen, and now he looked amazed instead of scared. "Human ships, you came. You actually came to help us. We got your distress call, Ambassador. Can you repair your stations?" "Yes, we can fix them. But I must ask you something. Why did you come? Your people barely know us. The Council never gave humanity much respect. Why did you risk your lives for us?" Jake looked at his crew. They all looked proud and determined. These were good people who had chosen to help strangers because it was the right thing to do. "Because someone has to help," Jake said. "Because helping people in need is what we believe in." "Ambassador, the Galactic Council might be gone, but the ideas it stood for do not have to die." Ambassador Velketh was quiet for a moment. "Captain Morrison, please come to our station. We need to talk about many things." Jake agreed, and 2 hours later he was walking through the damaged corridors of the Quellen station. Ambassador Velketh led him to a large meeting room, where representatives from a dozen different alien species waited. They were traders, diplomats, and refugees from 100 different worlds. "Captain, the Cascade destroyed more than buildings," Velketh explained. "It destroyed our whole way of life. Without the Council's authority and peacekeeping fleets, everything is falling apart. Raiders are taking over whole sectors of space. Entire star systems are going dark, and we cannot contact them anymore." "You want humanity to help restore order?" Jake said, understanding what the ambassador was asking. "More than that." Velketh leaned forward, his black eyes intense. "Captain, your people are one of the few whose government still works. Your military is still strong. Your factories still produce ships and weapons. In these dark times, we need someone to rally behind. We need hope. The Quellen formally asked that Earth take a leadership role in rebuilding the Galactic Council." Jake felt like someone had dropped a heavy weight on his shoulders. This was not a decision he could make by himself. This would change everything for humanity. This would put Earth in charge of things they had never controlled before. "I need to talk to my government," Jake said carefully. "This is too big for me to decide alone." "Of course. But Captain, time is working against us. Every day that passes, more systems fall into chaos. Every day more people die." Jake nodded slowly. "I will send the message right away. And Ambassador, no matter what Earth decides,